Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Canucks Conversation, brought to you today by the Wendy's Daily Faceoff Survivor game. My name is Dave Woodrelli. I am joined by Harmon Dial, our technical producer. The man at the controls is Grady Sass. December 1st, fellas. I've got my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Christmas sweater on. I've had it since I was 13, so it's a little tight. Just a little tight, though, because it used to be really big on me when I first got it when I was 13, but now it's just a tad tight. But it
still looks pretty new,
right? I take good care of it. I only wear it for 1 month of the year. But I thought December 1st, feeling the holiday spirit, I'm gonna wear it. I was actually gonna wear it at some point in November because I've had my tree up since like November 1st.
The day after Halloween.
Yeah, day after.
I don't
Halloween.
like that.
Cannot wait for Halloween to be over, and then I get the tree up.
You don't like Halloween?
No.
Why not?
Well, I don't know. Like, what does it do for you as an adult? What do you like about Halloween, Harmon?
I just like a reason to hang out with friends and have some festive energy.
Festive for why can't? Okay, tell me about Halloween. What your hangout with your friends looks different than if you hung out with them on, I don't know, October 26th.
But also, it's just little things like, I don't know, going to the rink and you see all these kids dressed up. It's just nostalgia.
Yeah, get in the spirit.
Whatever.
Dude.
No, I'm kidding. That's
Candy,
cool.
costumes.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just saying I liked it a lot as a kid, but as an adult, I like Christmas a lot more.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But that doesn't mean you have to hate Halloween.
I don't hate Halloween. I just can't wait for it to be over so that I can get to Christmas mode. That's all.
Noted Halloween hater.
You guys saw my costume this year. I love getting dressed up. I get dressed up. I got the dog, the girlfriend. We do a costume, all three of us. I love that.
November 1st is too early for the tree, though.
I disagree.
Yeah, that's too much. Like, you got to take all the Halloween stuff down. I mean, maybe you don't because you don't like.
No, actually, we have a lot of Halloween stuff. That's the thing, is my girlfriend really, really likes Halloween.
I was early this year, and we did like midway through November.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No, I always
do. In a jolly spirit earlier.
Mid-November's fair.
Yeah, I always do mid-November. It had stuff. There was stuff going on. We both had to work a lot in mid-November. So
the real question is, when do you take the Christmas decorations down?
That is seeped into like mid to late January.
Yeah, for me the same way. I remember I tweeted that last year. It was like January 17th, and I got like called out. I think J-Pat was on my ass too.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
I know some people, the trees, the lights.
Yeah, like some people, especially the ones that do outside too. Obviously, I live in an apartment. I don't get to do the lights outside, but I used to do it at my parents' house. I used to do their display, especially in the later years. I love doing that. But the people that do it on December 1st, like they get their decorations up December 1st, and then they use Boxing Day to put their stuff in boxes, and they take down all the decorations.
No.
Sorry, if I'm going to all that work, getting up on that ladder, getting up on the roof, putting up lights, doing that strenuous exercise, doing all the stuff inside too, and you're going to give me 25 days of that? No, I'm sorry. I maximize my time with it. Like, if you think about it, I'm close to 3 months of decorations. It's a good chunk of the year.
Yeah, good bang for your buck.
That's right. And that's what it's all about.
I'm always on like blackout week for that last month of December. And I don't mean by drinking. I mean just saying I'm not doing jack all, just sitting on the couch, watching World Juniors, having a couple drinks. Of course.
You're getting
Crown Royal drinks only, though, we must say.
You're getting a puppy, so your life is about to change a little bit, buddy. Your days of laying on the couch might be over, and you'll find that out soon. Anyways, we'll talk more about puppies as the show progresses. But first, we have to talk about our presenting sponsor today, which is the Wendy's Daily Faceoff Survivor Pool game. Wendy's is letting you win real food with your fantasy teams this year with the Wendy's Daily Faceoff Survivor Pool. For those of you who dream of smoking the competition, Wendy's is rewarding you with weekly prizes that will have you winning. But here's the big secret to lineups. It's all serendipitous. Like Wendy's new limited edition chicken strips and French toast sticks. You heard that right, folks. Together. Chicken strips and French toast sticks. Sometimes the best teammates are the ones you'd least suspect. Sign up to play Daily Faceoff Survivor Pool to win weekly prizes like new chicken strips and French toast sticks from Wendy's and the Wendy's app. I gotta try this. The French toast sticks and the chicken strips. I gotta try it. Have you ever had chicken and waffles? Because I haven't.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, Grady, I'm sure you have. Come on.
I have once.
Yeah, it
was overrated. I just find the savory with the salt and savory, like, it just doesn't work for me. Not a big fan.
I want to try it, and I'm definitely going to go try this at Wendy's, but I thought there'd be no chance that all three of us hadn't ever tried chicken and waffles. But yeah.
I'll try anything once, quads.
That's right. Okay,
I love how we're delaying the Canucks talk as much as possible after that performance.
I love this
Forgettable
comment.
game.
I love this comment from Sniper. Sorry, we're going to delay more. He said, I'm with Quads. As far as I'm concerned, Christmas starts November 1st at 12:01 a.m. Sniper, thank you so much for your contribution. Ignoring every other comment in the YouTube live chat. If you're here, though, be sure to subscribe, like the channel or like the video as well, and subscribe to the channel. Got a lot of good stuff Monday through Friday. We're going to be joined later by Wyatt Arndt. But yes, gentlemen, the time has come to talk about the Vancouver Canucks 4-1 loss at the Vegas Golden Knights as the Canucks continue to look for that first regulation victory on home ice against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, it was disappointing. I mean, I said on yesterday's show that I wasn't going to overreact based off one game, and I'm going to stick to that. But at least against Colorado, they were competitive. Through the first two periods, they were tied. And even when they went down early in the third period, they were pushing pretty hard until about the midway point of the third period when Cale Makar scored that back-breaking goal to make it 4-2. That was at least a fun, entertaining game, and you could look at it and go, okay, yeah, there's some distance for the Canucks to go. But at least it felt like they had a shot there, whereas against Vegas, it just felt like they were outclassed as soon as the puck was dropped. And for me, it's not just the result. It's not just losing, but the process and how disappointing they look, sort of old habits starting to seep into their game defensively. Just really disappointing.
We were just joking before the show started about Brock Besser blowing the zone early and how that resulted in a goal. And I made the joke that when we asked for vintage Brock Besser, that's not what we meant, because it did look like Brock Besser before he had rounded out his defensive game. It did not look good on that goal.
What was he doing there? Was he trying to go off for a line change, or was he just waiting for the outlet pass? Because he like turned the wrong way and started heading, you have down the ice.
Think with where the puck was, he wasn't thinking line change. Like I'm thinking he had
I'd
to
be
be
curious
thinking,
to see the shift length.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's trying to get an outlet pass, and he thought it's the old Bo Horvat. Like that's what he was doing.
Low in the zone, the Nikolai Goldolbin special.
Yeah, and Bo Horvat and Sven Berchi. Yeah. Like the list goes on. Basically anybody from those teams.
It looked like, you know what it looked like? It looked like Boys to Men, or like a peewee team playing like up against a midget or bantam team last night.
Yeah, it did look like Vegas was kind of playing with their food a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially like toward the end.
Attacking like a 5-man unit, dishing the puck around, like making sure like all 5 guys on the ice were getting puck touches. The Canucks just looked discombobulated and just didn't have that synergy we saw. Vegas did such a good job, I thought, too, keeping them to the outside. Like they were forcing them into these like low danger shots all night long, which is not going to win you games against reigning Stanley Cup champions.
The thing that we kind of pointed out when we were chatting about this game was that the top 6 did not play like we expect the Canucks top 6 to play. In terms of matchups, JT Miller had the matchup with the Jack Eichel line, started to get caved very early there. In the second period, Rick Talk and his coaching staff go to Elias Pettersson's line, and guess what? They did not fare much better, so it went back to Miller. I thought Nils Höglander actually played well. That was a really nice sight to see, as Nils Höglander continuing to have that positive progression where he gets a shot with JT Miller, and he continues to kind of do the right things that are making you think, okay, maybe this guy can be a middle 6 winger for this team moving forward. Back to the Miller line. They got caved a few times, and Miller spoke about this postgame, and we have the clip here, Grady. Miller spoke about it postgame. I left in the part where IMAC asked a follow-up question because I thought Miller's answer to it about the goal specifically was also worth including here. This is JT Miller on the matchup last night.
Every night is to outplay their line, and they outplayed us in the first period, and that's on me. They just, I played a little slow in the first period today, and they were ready to play. They were desperate. They got their goals out of hard work and outworked us, and that's on me.
What happened on the first quarter? You guys weren't very mobile. Just
it's about right. Nobody covered anybody. I might as well not even been there, just standing there.
Let's continue this conversation with Wyatt Arndt, and then after that, we'll continue it with our listeners in our anyone else portion, because we have more to get to from the game, but from the man who collected that audio for us. Big time reporter, Big J journalist, Wyatt Arndt was at the arena for us at Canucks Army last night. Okay, bring it down. As is quickly becoming a tradition on this show, Wyatt Arndt is brought to you by his own merch, which is available now at nationgear.ca. Get your gear under the tree. Get your favorite fan the gift of Nation Gear this holiday season. Order by December 10th to receive your Nation Gear before the holidays. Visit nationgear.ca to check out our latest collection. New background today, Wyatt.
It's a bit fancier. I know you've questioned my professionalism in the past, so it's funny that you're wearing a turtle shirt while I and Harmon are dressed appropriately. So I just, whatever. That's cool. Hypocrisy's cool. I get it.
Wyatt, I also have to ask, what do I have to do to be cool enough to get my own merch like you?
You have to basically be an award-winning journalist and then just have Nation Network be really nice to you out of nowhere. I don't know how it happened. It was pretty good. I think just live the award-winning life. That's all I can say.
You're on your way, Harmon. You're on your way.
Yeah.
You're already in the Nation Network studio. You got the Canucks Army logo behind. You're on your way. You're on your way.
There. You're like a 6 out of 10 on there. You got to get to 10 out of 10. Yeah.
Wyatt, what did you think about the game last night? You were there. You were in the press box. Overall thoughts on the game?
Game was terrible. It really felt like a mismatch. Kind of felt more like last year's Canucks, where you saw them and it didn't feel like they had much of a chance. I know there was one 10-minute stretch that talked about where they felt they had a bit of a pushback and a chance. That's true. When it's 2-0, it felt like maybe they get a goal, maybe they get a spark under them. But then that Tyler Myers penalty really did them in. And their penalty kill, like we're talking about in the press row, it was it was just 2 guys down low, 2 guys up really high. I don't know what the strategy was there, but Carlson shoots it in and scores pretty easily. Overall, it just felt like only a handful of players stood out to me. Like honest, Connor Garland, I think still has been just playing really well. For such a small player, he is so strong on the boards and so good at that puck. Like he was able to spin off a very big Vegas team and create chances. You start to wonder, like maybe you find a finisher for him, because nothing against Dakota Joshua, but he doesn't have that finishing talent that maybe someone that better could maybe finish off those chances that Garland's setting them up with. Hochleiter played well, like you said, but overall, it really was a case of the top players of the Canucks just didn't show up. Like even Hughes, who is a fantastic player, has had a fantastic season. Even his impact didn't feel as big as it has in the past games.
Wyatt, how worried are you about the top 6 right now? Because it wasn't just a stinker performance against Vegas for them, but feels like it's been a while now where, especially at 5-on-5, the top 6 just isn't driving the bus like they did early in the season.
Yeah, we all talked about the regression that's coming, and it feels like that. So now you're starting to wonder, like, how far is it going to go the other way, and when are they going to kind of stop that? Because, you talked about the low danger chances. They actually were credited with like 13 high danger chances, but I think those are the ones that were like kind of those download slam home plays. That's all they could kind of get out of that game. And Aiden Hill's really good at stopping those. And they did have some good chances down there, but your entire game plan can't just be, slam it down low. They weren't able to get anything in the middle of the ice. Elias Pettersson has been the topic du jour because we just don't know where he is right now. We don't know what kind of player he is right now. We don't know. Like we thought maybe against the Ducks, maybe his game is coming to form, but the Ducks are a bit of an easier opponent. But when you run to the big boys, he was nowhere to be seen. The JT Miller defense that, again, we've talked about and you guys did as well. That was one of the worst defensive performances we've seen. That the Brock Besser blow to the zone goal, like there were 3 mistakes in that. JT Miller was terrible in the first check that started that whole progress. Tyler Myers starts spinning in circles and then Besser blows the zone. That's 2022 Canucks right there. So, Miller talked about it post game that they're kind of doing the right things every other game. And that's what it feels like. They're inconsistent right now. And if they want to be a team that finishes, top 4, they've got to find a way to be consistent, because right now they're saying, like, they're acknowledging that they're not playing well, but it's been around 8 games where you don't know what team you're going to get every night. And that's just not going to be good enough for this team.
Miller took a lot of accountability post game. It was the subject of the Stanchies last night that you wrote live from Rogers Arena. What were your thoughts on JT Miller's comments post game?
Hey, honestly, we've seen him in the past kind of push back a bit when people call it his back checking, and there's kind of a bit of some animosity there. But to his full credit, he took accountability on the nose right there. Right away, he just, even like when you were there in the room, the vibe of it, like you can just tell, like he was just there. He was going to ask the questions, but he was pissed. Like he was not happy with himself. I'm sure for him, I know they said that it wasn't, we're not going to measure ourselves against this team, but that is a measuring stick. You see the defending Stanley Cup champions, you can say whatever you want. You always want to test yourself against the best and kind of see how you measure up. And Vegas has always been traditionally a very hard challenge for the Canucks. So I think for Miller, especially, because we know like everyone's a competitor, but some people it burns them a little bit more when they lose. I think Miller, especially with how he played, felt that loss and just was not happy with it. And again, that's to his credit, because in the past, like I've said, sometimes he's pushed back and been like, hey, I back check a couple times. No, he knew those first 2 goals. Like you said, he was standing around. You might not as well have been there. And that's pretty damning for him to say about himself.
Yep.
On a lighter note, Canucks acquired Nikita Zadorov yesterday. How excited are you to have like a second chaos draft, essentially?
I am so excited, man. I cannot wait. Because like, especially if those two play in the same pair together, I just have visions of them hitting one guy together and sandwiching him and him just crumpling and them high-fiving. Like, it's like the Bash brothers are on the team. It's funny because like obviously anytime you get a new player, the market kind of starts saying, like, I think I already saw some comments, they would have lost if they had Zadorov. It's like, let's just relax a little bit. he's not going to fix the team. But in terms of being an exciting player, like, and for a team that's traditionally been very boring to watch the last 8 years, he adds another element of excitement. And for a market that like absolutely loves big hits, this guy's going to provide those. Because if you watch his hit compilation, this guy hits hard. Like, you feel those hits. He is just a big tank out there. So having him out there and just like his offensive plays, we've seen like Harmon's article I was reading and seeing some of his ability just to skate that fast, like for a guy that big, it's pure entertainment. Like, how could you not be excited about this trade?
Wyatt, what does this team need right now? What's going to get them out of this funk?
Elias Pettersson to wake up. I don't know if he's hurt, fair enough, but he right now, like, we've seen Besser and Miller have games where they've led and scored goals. Pettersson, aside from that Duck game, it still feels like we don't know where he is, and that's affecting Mikheyev, that's affecting Kuzmenko. It's rippling down the lineup now in terms of, because they never talk of like maybe Kuzmenko plays with Miller and Besser now. So you're sitting there wondering, when is Pettersson going to start driving a line? Because we know he can. Beginning of the season, he did. We've seen him be the best player in the league at that time. But right now, you come in, you watch Jack Eichel just trounce your team.
Mm-hmm.
You know what good players can do, and the Canucks need some more of those performances from their best players, because we all know this team is like one of those teams that you're hoping to make the playoffs. But in order to get there, as they did at the beginning of the season, their big players need to be their big players. And right now, to me, Elias Pettersson is that's such a worry right now because we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so we were going to do a football quiz today. Like, that was what we said, but they traded for Nikita Zadorov. So maybe next week, Wyatt, when you're back on Friday, our regular Friday guest, of course, Wyatt Arndt, who's going to give us a football question next week. Next week, we're going to have a good time with some football questions. Wyatt,
I do just want to say well quickly that I got to start trading my shoulder, because in those scrums you got to hold your microphone out, and I was too far. So during the scrum to Tyler Myers, not only is he like 7 foot tall, but I was sitting there. He talked for like 6 minutes. My shoulder's shaking. I had to hold my arm with the other arm, and I was sitting there. And as I stopped, everyone started laughing because they thought I was going to sneeze. I was turning away in pain. So I'm rusty too. We can all up our game. I got to be better. That's on me. I might as well have just been standing there. It's I gotta get better.
We'll get you a little tripod that you
can
put
on the Thank you. I need one of those.
Just set up your mic in front of them with like the Sportsnet, the Canucks mic on the tripod. Just set the
get him a stanchion to lean on. How about
that? Thank you. I need my fellow stanchions to help me. I like that.
Wyatt, good stuff as always, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. I had one quick shout out to Harmon. Your article on The Athletic about Zadorov was fantastic. I loved it.
Thanks, man.
My Athletic subscription just renewed on my credit card, and I know you get a free one, obviously, so you don't know the pain, and Wyatt used to. Oh, Wyatt's gone. But when you don't, this with any subscription, when you don't remember that a subscription's gonna renew and then it renews, you're just like, oh, I did not think this was coming. So my Athletic, so you're welcome. The Athletic one.
Well, it's not going into my bank account, so
kind of. No,
not going into my bank account.
Okay. Anyways, we'll close it there. Thanks to Wyatt Arndt for joining us on this Friday. He is our Friday regular. Okay, quickly, we got to get this in. The 4 Winds Prospect Report, brought to you by our friends over at 4 Winds Brewing. It's a short and it's a sweet one today. A presentation of our friends at 4 Winds Brewing, family owned and operated in Delta, home to the 4 Winds Light Lager, a crisp, clean, and easy drinking beer, a beer for everyone, a perfect beer for before, after, or during an Archer Sealov shutout. Ask for 4 Winds Light Lager at your local liquor store or have some delivered right to your door through the online shop at 4windsbrewing.ca. Quickest prospect report in history. Archer Sealov was named goaltender of the month in the AHL with a 4-1-0 record. 2 shutouts on the month. Good stuff from Artie. Artie Party out there in Abbotsford. He's bounced back. The Abbotsford Canucks have also bounced back in a big way. Dave Hall spoke about a lot of this recently, but today, this morning, Friday morning, Archer Seelov's named goaltender of the month in the American Hockey League. Quickly, not as good news for Canucks fans. Logan Stankoven, rookie of the month in the American Hockey League.
Yeah, I remember before the draft, his numbers popped so much, and yet he was 5'7", and everybody, that I think was a very sort of polarizing player where I think most of the people that I talked to were like, yeah, this guy rocks. He should really be taken. And I know a lot of people in advance were banging the sort of drum for him, even on the media side. But then other people were like, yeah, but he's 5'7", and he's not the quickest guy. Not surprising that he's taken off like this.
We'll see what he does in the next step. But when you have success like this as a rookie in the AHL, it typically means you're going to have success at the next level. And the thing is, the AHL, it's not like it's not a physical league. Like, if anything, it might be even more physical than the NHL. Obviously, guys are a lot faster. And for a guy who's not the quickest, like Stankoven, you're obviously going to have a little more of an advantage there when everybody else is slow. But I don't know. We'll see. It's just something to note. Just something to note, folks. Don't get too angry that we pointed it out, but just something to note. Just something I noticed today. Okay, we're going to get to anyone else shortly. I like this. I really like this. Dr. Haas said, why don't we put Höglander with Elias Pettersson? I think that's going to be a subject of anyone else today, is what is going to get Elias Pettersson going. But before we get to anyone else, and before we get to finishing up our kind of recap of the game, you wrote something exceptional at the Athletic. Okay. I just paid $80 for an Athletic subscription. Got every dollar worth in the article you dropped this morning, and terrific work. Honestly, fantastic work over at the Athletic by you, breaking down Nikita Zadorov's game. But not everybody in this show is an Athletic subscriber, so go ahead and break it down for us on the show.
Yeah. So essentially, after the trade happened, I spent a lot of time watching back tape of Zadorov and trying to essentially learn, okay, what type of player is he? What is he going to bring to the table? A few things that, of course, stood out. Number one, the skating ability. He doesn't just skate well for a big man. He skates well by any NHL defenseman standards, period. And we've got the objective data for this now too, thanks to the NHL Edge tracking statistics. So Nikita Zadorov speed bursts above 20 miles. He's at 24 this season, which puts him essentially in the 71st percentile. So right around the top quarter of all defensemen. And the top speed he's reached this season has him in the 97th percentile of all NHL defensemen. So this guy can absolutely fly, especially when he picks up steam. And it's funny watching him play. Sometimes the way he's able to leverage that skating is so fun to watch. There was one sequence against the Nashville Predators where Zadorov got the puck back at the point. He danced and shook off the winger almost in a Quinn Hughes-like way. Like, seriously, watching him move laterally and with that type of agility, not just north-south, but side to side on that play. He made a nice move, makes a pass to Sharangovich, which should have resulted in a scoring chance, but Sharangovich decided to pass it to the right flank to nobody. Seconds later, Zadorov's defense partner blows a tire, so the Nashville forward Yakov Trenin is essentially off to the races on a breakaway. You just see this massive 6'7" freight train gunning it, strips him of the puck clean. Now he's in the defensive zone, and now he like weaves and dangles his way end to end into the offensive end, dumps it in, first man into the forecheck, and you're just like, this is such a fun, exciting sequence to watch. So the skating right away stands out. The physicality, of course. He's got a cannon of a shot too. And sometimes he uses that skating to make aggressive defensive stops as well. I was watching a Colorado game where a lot of times you'll see defensemen sort of sag off and sit back because they are worried about getting walked by somebody like a Nathan MacKinnon. But on that play, Zadorov sort of trusted his lateral mobility and defending the rush, really quickly closed him and just one-hand swatted the puck because he has such a long reach as well. So you have those types of plays and you go, wow, on any given shift, he can make a game-changing play, whether it's offensively or defensively, because of his unique combination of speed, size, length. But then there's also the other side of the coin, which is he also has the knack on any given shift to take what should be a routine play and just fumble it, make a big egregious mistake. So I mean, there are some specific examples I wanted to highlight from there, but I also don't want to go off on a 5-minute monologue.
Fair enough.
Was there anything you wanted to chime in on?
Well,
what I
people in the
mentioned so far?
chat are saying, and I think Wyatt tweeted this, is go watch the Nikita Zadorov hit compilation on YouTube. It was Oznuck, I think. Yeah, he said, I was a bit dubious about Zadorov. Then I checked out his greatest hits video on YouTube. Pretty convincing. And that's an element that he's going to bring to this blue line as well. A guy we were talking to, Bob Germany is what they call him out in Calgary. Robert Munich, his name is. He's our socials guy. He's a Flames fan. We were talking to him, and he pointed out that, excuse me, while Zadorov has struggled when he plays top 4 minutes, he's kind of that guy who's a bit chaotic, but he will drop the gloves even if he's not the best fighter. He still will go at guys, and he'll still drop the gloves if the time is necessary. I also realized 2 former teammates on this team. I think he played with Ian Cole, like on the same defense pairing in Colorado, and I don't think he played with, but I'd have to check that. Actually, I should ask him. Tyler Myers. When Tyler Myers was in Buffalo, Zadorov was a rookie. So actually, they would have been. I mean, Myers, what, 3-4 years older than him? Anyways, Myers had been there already when Zadorov got to Buffalo for his rookie year. But just interesting thing that I realized, 2 former teammates.
In sort of referencing the physicality, it was hilarious watching him rock Tyler Bertuzzi in the neutral zone against the Leafs recently. And it's funny because David Kampf started to go up to Zadorov, and Zadorov just standing there looking like he's bored, knowing that nobody's going to do anything to him because he's the 6'6", 6'7" freight train. And so it's funny, Kampf comes in and he gives him like a shot, like a little light slash, and then Zadorov just like is like almost has this posture of like, come on, do something, I dare you. It just doesn't even move or flinch, and then Kampf inevitably just continues back checking because he's like, I don't want the smoke. So
the Canucks need more of that energy. They absolutely need more of that energy on this team, right?
Yeah.
But
also,
yeah, go on.
Like the flip side of it, yes, there's so many positives, but sometimes, yeah, he is capable of brain cramps in situations where sometimes he'll try and be too aggressive defensively, where instead of taking a defensive angle where you just contain the guy, he can reach in too eagerly because he thinks he can immediately kill the play, and then he gets burned on what should not have resulted in a scoring chance. Or there was like one play in a Vegas game I watched recently where he checks Barbashev well, wins the puck battle in the neutral zone, but as soon as he wins the puck battle, he throws it back up the wall right to Barbashev, and because of that, Barbashev just makes a quick pass, and now Zadorov's caught, and it's a 2-on-1 chance for Jack Eichel. It's like those little things, or I mean, they're not really little things. They're pretty sort of memorable mistakes. Or against the Senators, he just had the puck behind his net, so just sort of gave it away, immediately ends up in the back of the net. Now, there's definitely more good than there is bad, and I will say he's better than Tyler Myers because A, he's a better skater, B, he's got a cannon of a shot, C, he's also a better puck handler. So the ratio of good plays versus mistakes is definitely more favorable for Zadorov. Mm-hmm. But he's going to be the type of player where one night you watch him and you go, this guy is such a stud, should be in our top 4 every day of the week. And then there are going to be other nights where he's going to make mistakes where he may make you want to pull his hair out.
Pull his hair.
Oh, sorry, pull your hair out.
I'm like, whoa, sorry, a huge mistake. Okay, my question for you, Harm, is we keep hearing the stuff about, okay, great in a third pair, struggles when he gets to a top 4. One of the reasons he left Calgary is because he wasn't happy with his ice time. Assuming that the Canucks are going to play him in more of a top 4 role, A, who's his partner, and B, is he going to have success in that role, in your best guess?
Yeah, this is where the medium-term fit is not ideal. I think short-term, he's definitely a much-needed upgrade, of course, especially relative to some of the depth blue line edge they have. And you look at the workload that Cole and Myers have taken on recently, they needed somebody like Zadorov. But once Susie comes back, especially, It's not going to be easy. I think the coaching staff has to show some openness to play a left shot defender on the right side. And if you're going to do that, then I think Zadorov fits best on a pair with Ian Cole, because Ian Cole is more of a calm, steady option who can clean up mistakes, who is just sort of a safety net. You can have a young, wild and free partner like Zadorov on the ice at the same time, and Cole can just be the guy who is rock solid in his own end, and you let Zadorov do some of the more dynamic things, because as we alluded to earlier, he's not just a defensive defenseman. He likes to be active offensively. He's really ambitious, both offensively and defensively. This is somebody on a shift by shift basis who wants to make an impact, and that's where sometimes it can get him in trouble, but sometimes that's what also leads to his spectacular plays. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting test. He has improved a lot, I will say, since he got to Calgary compared to his previous stops in Chicago and Colorado, and of course Buffalo before that. And because Calgary was so deep, he didn't get an extended, really long look in the top four, because on the left side, Flames have Hannafin and more recently Mackenzie Weegar. So you can understand why he was used in a third pair capacity. So maybe he is at the point now, especially if the coaching staff can calm his game down a little bit, to where he can settle into a second pair role.
Lots and lots of interaction in the YouTube live chat, which means it's a good time for us to get to anyone else.
Just quickly, we had Dan Milstein on Scaris and Price today, and he said that Zadorov was playing on the right side only out of necessity recently for Calgary, and that the last 6 years he's been on the left side. Sorry, he was playing the right side, but the last number of years he's been a left side guy. So I think in a pinch you can put him over there, but ideally you probably want him on that left side, which is where he was when that decombination of him and Eric Branson were so good a couple of years back.
And there's your first anyone else, courtesy of Dan Milstein. And thank you, Ray, for bringing that up. Dan Milstein getting in on the fun early here in anyone else, presented by DoorDash. It's our listeners' chance to get involved and hit us up in the YouTube live chat. It's also our listeners' chance to get 25% off and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more. That's right, for a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when they download the DoorDash app and enter code NATION25. That's all capital letters, NATION, and the numbers 25. Offer valid in Canada, subject to change. Terms do apply. I kind of did the speed run that we did yesterday. Yeah. I found the middle ground. The important thing is promo code NATION25 for groceries, convenience, whatever you need, courtesy of DoorDash. We've got a lot in the chat. We'll start on the topic of Hughes Zadorov. Antagonist asks, could we see a Hughes Zadorov pairing? I think going back to what Grady just said, probably not. You don't want him on the right side if you can avoid it. But the other factor is the Hughes Hronek pairing has been pretty steady, like all things considered. When we talk about the Canucks kind of fluctuating here in their recent games, the Hughes Hronek pairing has been pretty steady, and I don't think you want to break that up just yet for Zadorov. But hey, Dollywall reporting that they're still going after Ethan Bear. I think that's the one that might change things, is when Ethan Bear comes back. I think you reunite Hughes with Ethan Bear.
Yeah, and then at that point, maybe you play Zadorov and Hronek together.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden, your defense core is just so much stronger than it is right now. And I think, like you said, short term, Zadorov makes them a better defense core. But even, midterm, when they start getting those guys back, and if they can manage to sign Ethan Bear, it's going to make them a better team.
Oh, one thing I sort of wanted to add about the potential fit beyond this season is the Canucks already have Carson Soucy locked up beyond this season, I believe making 3.25.
Yep.
And he's sort of been a similar player where it's like has crushed third pair minutes, hasn't necessarily proven himself in the top four capacity, especially if you're a team that has ambitions of going on a deep playoff run down the road. Zadorov really has to prove himself as a legit bona fide top four defenseman to warrant an extension, because otherwise what's the point of investing north of $3 million into two left shot defensemen where neither one is potentially a bona fide top four defenseman? So that's the challenge for Zadorov, because there's already been a lot of speculation about, well, with Dan Milstein and the history there, that and how much Zadorov wanted to be in Vancouver, that there's probably going to be strong momentum towards re-signing him. You got to make sure, especially because his current cap it is 3.75. So a Zadorov extension is not coming cheap. And so if you're getting that done and you already have Carson Soucy as like a number 4 or 5 defenseman making money in term beyond the season, you have to be mindful of that type of commitment and really making sure that, okay, you're essentially committing to Zadorov or Soucy. One of those guys has to be in your top 4 during your cup contention window.
And do you think that's a good strategy for the Canucks? Like, is that going to be how it works out?
We'll see. Like, to me, I asked NHL executives before the Zadorov trade, when he was initially linked, to sort of ask, like, hey, do you think he can hang in a second pair role? The feedback I got was yes, but you need to be willing to live with the mistakes. So there is the potential there, especially, again, given how much he improved over his time in Calgary. It's not something he's definitively proven, but there's potential.
Okay, this one from Luke. I asked him for pronunciation, and all he said was you have to learn Polish. Turkevich is my best guess here. Are the
Turkowicz?
No, because that we learned that with Hunter Brustevich. When it's spelled like that with the Z, it's Vich, I think. Luke, correct me if I'm wrong. His point here.
Sorry, Luke.
Are the big and tall defensemen being targeted by NHL referees? It feels like anytime Myers throws a bigger hit, he ends up in the penalty box. And obviously there was that great moment yesterday where the hot mic caught Tyler Myers talking to the ref and basically saying, he stepped in front of me, and you heard the whole conversation, which ended with the ref saying, Tyler, I have to give you a penalty there. And yeah, that one didn't look like it would be a penalty if Myers was a little bit shorter. But the one I want to talk about, and I haven't told you either of you that I wanted to talk about this, but did you see the hit on Luke Hughes by Garnett Hathaway?
I didn't get a chance to see it.
Clean hit, hits him as they're both going into the side, going toward the boards. Luke Hughes thought it was an icing, so he stopped skating. They were basically skating side by side, and Hathaway just gave him a shoulder, and Hughes lost his balance and went down on the ice and into the boards, and Hathaway got a 5-minute major, and John Tortorella was losing his mind on the Flyers bench, and for good reason. They reviewed this too, and it came out as a 5-minute major after they reviewed it. And the point that I wanted to bring up, it's my anyone else, because this was a good comment from Luke that I wanted to get to, but also my anyone else that I had for the day was, does anyone else think we may have taken it for granted how good Quinn Hughes has been since he got to the NHL at avoiding hard contact?
Oh yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's because Luke is bigger than Quinn.
Well,
but
and that's
my goodness, he's getting laid out on a nightly basis.
That was the second hit behind the net that he's been blown up this season. But what I like about that game last night is that Luke Hughes came back, won in overtime on a feed from brother Jack.
Because it wasn't a penalty. Like he wasn't even hurt on the play. Like it wasn't a penalty. Anyways, like he had the puck. Like it was not a penalty, and for them to give out a 5-minute major, I couldn't believe it. And the thing that it made me think about was just, I've never seen Quinn Hughes wear a hit like that.
He's so elusive in that he can just like angle his body and turn away. And by the time, a forechecker gets in on him, he's already like peeled off a guy and gone up ice. And like, we always talk about how good his escapability is. It's not just the O zone where he can escape pressure. It's the D zone you see on those breakouts where like he'll suck the F1 forechecker to come in, and then boom, he's like gone. And that's just what makes him so special, is that he can outskate himself in any jam, and he's got the hockey IQ to, make a good play or just kind of exploit the open space.
Got to go over elusiveness with his younger brother.
We didn't even answer the question. Let me answer the question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yes, I do think there are occasional instances when, because Myers is so tall, that the hit looks worse than it actually is. And this is not just referring to this season, but occasional sort of plays and penalties in previous seasons during his Canucks tenure as well. I also think part of it is when you're that big, you're just that noticeable, and everybody's
Yeah.
gonna blame the tall guy.
Your
And you're
shoulder
hitting
is at most
smaller
gu-
guys,
yeah.
and the smaller guys are just like, the center law of gravity comes in where the bigger guy just ends up crushing the guy. And whether that's a cheap hit or not, it's just the size
And
discrepancy.
your shoulder, if you're Tyler Myers, is at
Yeah.
most guys' heads,
Right.
regardless. So if you're leading with your shoulder, you're probably going to hit a guy in the head.
And Myers is often, going down and through the guy, and the little guy is usually just, he's in an unfortunate position, whether they're bent over or not. Just Myers is so much bigger and that's where it comes on, the player getting hit to kind of protect himself and know, oh crap, Tyler Myers or Nikita Zadorov is on the ice. I better keep my head up.
But I will also say, yes, there are occasional instances where I don't think targeted is the right word, but it's just more noticeable, and it makes the infraction look worse than it actually is.
Absolutely.
But on the whole, with Myers, he takes a lot of undisciplined, well-deserved penalties.
Like stick infractions.
Yeah,
Those aren't
yeah.
getting called against
Just
him because
reaching
he's
with
big.
his stick. And like you saw that on that first goal last night, like he goes to poke check. I forget the guy who it was, but when he does that, he leaves Eichel at the side of the net. And you can break down that play, Miller and Besser, like we talked about earlier. But, what we always say about Myers, like less is more. Like the more you see him kind of get out of his element and be aggressive, that's when he starts to get into trouble.
I like the idea of the zoo pairing that was brought up on the emergency episode yesterday. The chaotic rhino for Nikita Zadorov and Chaos Giraffe.
And maybe Adam Foote can get the most out of those guys.
That's actually
right?
one I wanted to get to here as well. This one from Antagonist. Zadorov will greatly benefit from working with Gonchar and Foote as well. They've helped Myers calm his game down, and they can certainly help Zadorov.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I think, yes, there has been an improvement in Myers's performance. I also think it's helped in general for Myers that, of course, he's taken on a bit more of a workload recently, especially since Susie went down with injury. But compared to last season, he was consistently defending against top lines. To me, it's no wonder he was getting exposed, because he was also doing so alongside Ekman Larsson, whose mobility was compromised. So to put him in that role, no wonder he was overmatched. And I think a big reason why he's been able to sort of have better moments this season is he's also, like, Hughes and Hronik are taking on all the matchups against top lines, which Myers for the two previous seasons was doing. So I think the more you can shelter his minutes, and of course with Zadorov coming into the picture as well, that helps, the better you're going to see Tyler Myers play.
I just want to point out, Luke pointed out in the chat that I nailed the pronunciation of his name, and he was very happy to see that. And he said, yes, it's just like Brustevich, which I thought, although that I in there made me think it was Turkeyvich, but it's not. It's Turkovich. That's a good name. That's a solid name. Okay, another one here. This one from DM Payne. Since Zadorov is a Canuck, is there a need for Bear or adding an impact winger? There's more of a need, as I think what he wanted to say. Is there more of a need for Bear or an impact winger? This is a good one.
Interesting,
This is a
because
good one.
if they could get a legit difference-making top six forward, I really do think they'd benefit from that, because you can see it now that Pettersson's struggling. They have a lot of finishing talent in the top six. I don't think they have enough high-end actual dynamic play creators and play drivers, the way that, for instance, Connor Garland drives the third line, but a top six version of that, if that kind of makes sense. Because Garland, he can do what he does in a bottom six role perfectly, because he doesn't quite have chemistry with any of the top six centermen. But imagine if you had a better upgraded version of Garland that could do it, except he actually has chemistry with the Pettersson or a Miller, because you're looking at some of the winger options right now. Ilya Mikheyev, yes, he's fast. Yes, he's good on the forecheck, but he's a complementary player. I mean, before he came to Vancouver, he was a third liner in Toronto. Andrei Kuzmenko, he's really creative, especially in the offensive zone, but he doesn't transport the puck up the ice. He's not somebody that is able to create scoring chances, or at least a high volume of them on his own. He's sort of dependent on Pettersson to do his thing, and that's why when Pettersson struggles, it makes it harder for Kuzmenko to make an impact. The point I'm trying to make is when I think of play drivers, I think of like self-starters, guys who can create offense regardless of what their line mates are doing. And you're seeing it with the top line. Like Mikheyev and Kuzmenko rely on Pettersson to be the engine for them to be effective. Even with Besser, he's been such a clinical finisher, great scorer, but he's not going to drive play and create a ton of chances on his own. And that's fine, because not every top 6 player you have is going to be sort of a driver. But then you look at the opposite wing on the left side, and that's where they've been missing. You know, they've used DiGiuseppe a lot, and that's where you could probably use another sort of impact play creator. But the question then is, how realistic is it to actually find a guy, especially because if it's a high-end top 6 forward, you're going to be giving up a lot of premium assets. And the thing to keep in mind is this Canucks blue line, even though it's shored up now, you're in a spot where you have a lot of expiring contracts. And beyond this season, I think the bigger need is still to add an actual high-end defenseman, not a Zadorov type, like a 4 or 5 type, or an Ethan Bear, who's another like 4 or 5 type defenseman. At some point, the team is going to need to add another Hronek type 2-3 defenseman who can actually be a needle mover, who's a really high-end guy, who's a clear cut above the Ian Coles, the Carson Soucies, the Nikita Zadorovs, the Ethan Bears. So I think realistically, Bears probably a more sort of realistic ad, just because it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah, like you look at the fact that he's a free agent. The only free agent forward you could go get is like Phil Kessel right now. He's probably not checking the boxes that you want checked based on what you just said.
Kessel's underlying numbers, by the way, were really, really rough in Vegas last season, because I know a lot of people will look at the point totals and be like, oh, could he give you a bit of a spark? But man, he's a real defensive liability at this point. There's a reason he didn't play in the playoffs.
Yep. No Phil Kessel slander on this show, though, if you don't mind.
That's fair.
Osnuck asking the questions we didn't think would be asked today. If negotiations don't work out with Elias Pettersson, who would you target as your next first line center?
I haven't even thought of this. I'm not.
Go figure out, like, maybe Macklin Celebrini. Like if it's not working out with Petey, get ready to rebuild, because it's working out with Petey. Let's not go there. Osnuck, thanks for the question. Okay, this is a good one. Sniper asks, will the Canucks actually show up for the game in Calgary this time?
This is a good question for you to answer. You're a vibes guy.
Yeah, I am a vibes guy. I guess we'll have to find out on Saturday. But yeah, they will, for a couple reasons. The first one being that this team is so recently off and on again, where they have a good game, then they have a bad game, then they have a good game, then they have a bad game. That was a bad game against Vegas. Math tells you, see that? I can count to 2, that the next game they play, and patterns, I know patterns.
I was going to say that's more pattern recognition than it is math.
It's math. The math tells you that they should be ready to go tomorrow.
The science.
Right? Yeah, the science. All the science that I've put behind this tells you that they should be ready to go tomorrow night against Calgary Flames. We'll be back on Monday to break that down. Okay, anyone else? I don't know. Like people are wondering about Andrei Kuzmenko and, he scored a goal. Like, that's great for him long term. JC Miller was asked about that. He even said it. He's like, yeah, I'm not taking much pride in that when we're down 4-0. Teams are like taking their foot off the gas, so it doesn't really mean much. Good for Kuzmenko. But yeah, last thing I want to say about the game. Actually, okay, we'll get to this one and then I'll say one last thing about the game. Then we'll get to Betway. This one from Sinochick. How confident are you that Miller can be a matchup center in a Game 7 playoff series against a McDavid/Eichel/ any of the 3 LA centers? People in the chat have already pointed this out, that Miller is not going to do well in that role unless Elias Pettersson is also going. And I think right now, JT Miller's been good in that role, but last night, he's not firing on all cylinders. So they try the Pettersson line. That line is arguably worse than the Miller line was. So Miller gets the matchup once again. JT Miller can't do it by himself. And that's what's happening right now, is he's having to do it by himself. And hey, you know what? Let's be honest here. The accountability from JT Miller post-game saying, yeah, this was on me. He's taking all the blame on himself. He needs more help from his teammates, and that definitely includes Elias Pettersson. Hey, does Petey need more help? Yeah, he does. He also needs more help. They need more from the rest of the lineup. But when your top two lines aren't going, you're not going to play well against those top teams, as we saw last night.
Yeah. I mean, look, we all know Pettersson needs to get going. Miller in a matchup role. It's interesting because for the most part this season, he's obviously been up to the task. But the one thing that worries me is that he's never been that guy before the season.
Yep.
Especially doing it at center in a, like, the thing is, Miller is elite offensively. Power play, 5-on-5, what he can do. You see the ridiculous point totals. But in his career, he's never really been a shutdown guy. And so it does, I'm trying to think of the right word. It does concern me a little bit. The idea of him having to go up against one of those top centermen, just because it's like, I'm confident he can do it in a stretch. I just don't know if I can lean on him to do it really consistently.
I would argue that you want Elias Pettersson to get to that point, because I think we've been talking about it for years now, where he wants those matchups. He does well in those matchups in stretches, but as soon as there's any sort of adversity, he's pulled out of that matchup by every head coach that's coached him. That's what's happened. He's tried, look, like Travis Green had him in a matchup role toward the end of Green's tenure. During the playoffs, the bubble playoffs, Elias Pettersson's line was the matchup line for a lot of those games. That was during the bubble. Those were playoff games, kind of. The next season, same thing. They try him in the matchup role, does well at times, doesn't do well at other times, and he's taken out of the role. I wonder if Elias Pettersson's going to take that step. You hoped that last night when Miller wasn't going, that when they put Pettersson's line out there, that maybe he'd step up and his line would step up. It was a disaster. So they pulled it right back. And I don't know, man. Like, JT Miller's going to take a lot of flack for his performance last night, and rightfully so, but all these people saying, see, this is what's wrong with the Canucks roster. JT Miller's not a matchup center. Okay, fine. You just pointed out that he's elite offensively. What does JT Miller look like if he's able to get the matchups that, maybe a guy like Elias Pettersson is getting?
Yeah.
You want Pettersson to take that step is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not Miller's fault if he, let's say he were to struggle in that role. I don't think anybody should be blaming Miller.
Yeah.
It would be more a situation of you're asking a player whose true calling card is offensive talent to essentially shut down some
the
of the
Bo
top
Horvat special.
Yeah, it's especially because it's not just a question for this season, but Miller's 30.
Yep.
So from this point forward, especially when you think about the Canucks' sort of future cup contention window, he's, every year that he gets deeper into his 30s, most players tend to gradually taper off in terms of their two-way effectiveness. So it is something to be mindful of over the remainder of the season.
Zach Davies wants them to go get Sean Monahan as 2C. Dark horse name, he said.
Monahan would be a good 3C. He's also really, like, he had a great start this season, and he's struggled a lot recently for the Canadiens.
Yeah.
He's a 3C.
Yep, for sure. The final thing I want to say about the game was when I was just doing instant reaction last night, I was kind of poking around natural stat trick. There was one line where all three players, actually, I should just say there was three forwards last night. I think Phil Giuseppe was right at 50, who had a positive Corsi percentage, like over 50. And the only three players were Teddy Bluger, Connor Garland, and Dakota Joshua. Great for them, not great for the Canucks.
Yeah, wow. Look at you with the math pulling out.
Right.
I don't think I've ever called it Corsi either. You're going technical today. I like it, but yeah, I mean, just goes to show you, as much as a team as a whole is outclassed, it's on the top half of the lineup to cook, especially on a night where you saw Jack Eichel almost single-handedly beating the Canucks.
Yep, and that's not going to cut it in the playoffs, and it looks like the team's headed for the playoffs. So hopefully they can start to figure things out. We're predicting a win tomorrow night in Calgary, but we will see. Obviously, when we get back on Monday, we'll be here to break it all down. I feel like I'm missing something, but I don't know if I am.
Betway.
There it is. Thanks, guys. Look at that. Okay, let's get to our Betway bet of the day. Thought I had to sneeze. I didn't. We're going with the Columbus Blue Jackets today. Yeah, that's right. Columbus Blue Jackets play Friday night against the Ottawa Senators. They are the underdogs, plus 125 odds. Means
Port Moody's Kent Johnson is back
in the lineup, making his return. A $10 bet returns you $22.50 over on Betway. Betway must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. Okay, final thoughts, guys, as we close out this week and head into December.
Yeah, you're wagging Blue Jackets just like you're wagging Anaheim Ducks.
That's right. Can't beat them, baby. Can't beat them. Grady, final thoughts?
Well, they better show up against Calgary tomorrow. I'm curious to see how Zadorov goes up against his former team here. Calgary's been playing better of late. Saw a lot of people upset about the return yesterday, and I think we all agreed it seemed pretty low. But, I just wonder with kind of the trade request and the situation in Calgary, like, was that Craig Conroy coming to the realization, like, I got to trade this guy sooner rather than later? I think a lot of the other teams that were in on Big Nikita wanted retention from Calgary. And, the Canucks cleared some cap space and they're able to facilitate the deal. So, yeah, let's see how this shakes out tomorrow night.
All right. And with that, we will close it out there. Also, got to get this in quickly before we close out anyone else. Graded Plume pointing out what we've been pointing out for a while. PD is hurt. I think he's a new listener because he's saying media is not talking about this. We know his wrist is probably bugging him, Graded Plume. We brought it up on every show.
It's been talked about on a lot of different shows.
Yeah. It's good. It's a good contribution, though. I just think he might be a new listener. So we got a lot of new listeners today. Be sure to subscribe and like today's episode. Subscribe to the channel, folks, and go find it wherever you get your podcasts as well. But for now, we're heading off into the weekend. For my co-host, Harmon Dial, our technical producer, Grady Sass, my name is David Quadrelli. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation with Harmon and Quads every weekday at 2 p.m. Be sure to check it out on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. And if you missed it, go check it out on your favorite podcast catcher app.